Welcome to Speak Sex. I'm your host, Eve Eurydice. I am a writer, artist, podcaster. I was born on the island of Lesbos, and I am working on putting together a platform for a new sexual revolution, and this podcast is one of the venues for it. So it's called Speak Sex because it's meant to help us learn a new way to communicate with each other, both within sex space and then in the rest of our lives. So it's about translating our desires into language that can be liberating for us women and can reprogram the consciousness of the people around us. Today's guests are two members of the Skirt Club, including the founder, who's a dear friend of mine, and I'm her big fan. So they are here for a weekend. They're here in Miami for one of the annual weekend events that Skirt Club organizes that include parties, but also events, talks, panels, yoga sessions, educational experiences, and whatnot. So we just gave a panel on this topic of boss ladies and gender and inclusion techniques in the workplace for women who want to be empowered, both as individuals and as sexual individuals in the workspace and in the in their life outside their sex life, outside the bedroom. Ways to do it, and the panel was hosted by a specialist strategist, Emily Megan, also known as Femily. Emily Megan Moreau-Ho. She is a gender and inclusion strategist, and she specializes in teaching tech companies become more gender inclusive. Good luck with that, Femily.
Thank you.
It's like a lifelong project.
Yeah, a little bit. Just like yours.
Yeah, all three of us.
Yes.
So Genevieve, I'm coming back to you. Genevieve Lejeune, 6 years ago, left the corporate world, and instead of like making money the way guys made money in the patriarchy, she decided to just reverse course, right?
Indeed.
And do the opposite. And she founded the Skirt Club, which is a club for bi-curious women.
Bi-curious, bisexual.
Mm-hmm. And bisexual
maybe
women.
Gay. Not
Maybe
sure.
gay.
For a day.
And it has members and chapters around the world. So currently there are 13 countries, right?
13 countries and 13,000 members.
Wow. Yeah.
So it should be 130,000?
Yes, that's what,
Yeah. Okay, so Skirt
that's
Club
what we're all working for.
Yeah. Look, we do want to take this global and mainstream, and I think sexuality is so much less taboo these days. Pop culture has made sure of it. Every pop star I see on TV is making out with a girl. I don't know whether she's actually bi or not, but it's what you do these days, right? So, Skirt Club has that potential. I'm looking forward to it.
Well, I feel that, again, this is not culturally the right moment to say this, but I have always believed since day one, and I will stick to it, that I don't think sexuality should be part of our political identity, and I don't think that it should be binary the way it is, so that we're asked to make a choice. Are you gay? Are you straight? For both genders. And I, as much as I feel that we should all speak sex and speak about our sexuality openly and without shame and without fear and without judgment, I also feel that we shouldn't stick to an identity and make like a big, huge announcement about it to the world, because then we limit our own, future selves. We don't allow ourselves to like change and morph and try new things, because we've made such a big announcement of who we are and why. So and hopefully younger people are more comfortable trying out all kinds of different sexual experiments.
They certainly are. Gen Z, I'm witnessing women in my club under the age of 25 not even considering privacy or
That's nice.
wanting to answer, Kinsey scale preference. It's irrelevant, maybe 1 today, maybe 6 tomorrow.
Right.
I don't care. I change it as fast as
Exactly.
my underwear.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I
That's
like that.
beautiful.
I like
Me
that.
too.
They are so free.
Yeah.
I mean, I watch them coming into the party and they're like doing an Insta story as they're walking in,
Oh my gosh.
talking to camera about what they're going to do tonight. And then the rest of my guests over the age of 35 are like literally using a different name, wearing a wig. They are scared anyone might find out who they are. But of course, no one really cares who
No.
they are.
Yeah.
So it's just
exactly.
it's all perspective.
Yeah, yeah, I think so too. But I mean, we can't really speak of sexual liberation of any kind without being liberated from all those, narrow definitions of who is what.
Right. And I think also when you think about, you just mentioned the Kinsey scale, I think the Kinsey scale is based on behavior, right? Which is more of a male centric idea of sort of love, sex, and connection. Whereas if you think about bisexuality in terms of there's a million ways to define it. Is it your community of the people that you're most drawn to? Is it the people that you have crushes on? Is it who you romantically fall in love with? Is it who you want to be your partner in your bed forever? Is it the person that you've made out with before? Is it the people you might make out with in the future if you had your choice of who you get to make out with? There's so many ways to define
Right.
it.
Yeah, I agree. And and again, there was a period where being a lesbian was a political choice as a feminist.
Yeah.
And I felt like it was important to say that. But in practice, it's just not what, most women I know are still more comfortable making a baby with a guy because that's how it's set up. It's easy. And you don't have to rearrange anything. And then playing with women, or maybe having a 3-year or 3-month affair with a woman, going out with a woman for a while, that sort of thing. But it seems like the relationship, the homoerotic relationship is easier. It's more casual. It doesn't, have to be negotiated that hard. Whereas the relationship with the male partner has to be negotiated because they speak a different language. They also find themselves, function differently in the world. So you have to go through and understand their expectations and make sure that you have the same expectations that that are not unspoken, whether it's about monogamy, whether it's about commitment, finances, decision making, naming. Oh my God, who gets whose name, all that stuff. You have to go down the list from the smallest things, like what you do in the bedroom, to the big decisions that are important, because the way that they were made in the past were all against us. They were all, stuck on the side of the men. So in order to undo it, you have to actually go through it and say it and agree with it and find consent. And that's where verbal consent goes both ways. We get to give verbal consent sexually, but we want to get the men to give us verbal consent socially. So we get, more and more equality and power in a couple. Right? We as women have to include our body first, our female body, kind of understand it, accept it, and make it part of who we are, and understand that our body is ourselves. This is the I. The skin, this flesh, the curves, they are I. It's, it's not an it. I mean, the language wants us to call it an it, right? It already, the language creates this separation, but that's how we get objectified, and that's how we get co-opted into objectifying ourselves, and using our body to either get something from society, men, bosses, whatever, or hiding it, feeling compelled to hide it, to disguise it, to distort it, in order to get ahead. As men, as kind of more desexualized women, and fraudulent males, let's say. It's a metaphoric castration for us as women.
Yes,
because we get rid of our femininity so often, thinking it's much easier to be heard in the workspace than, if we're dressed sexy and, we speak from a sexually empowered space, and at the same time we're talking work language.
Yeah, you're making me think about the transition from Mad Men era days when the women who went to work were the secretaries, right? And so they were
Right.
dressed like Joan. They were sexy. They had curves. They like wore the sexy secretary uniform. And so
Very
then the
sexy.
trailblazing women who were in the C-suite or or who were law partners or stuff, they wanted to dress themselves not like those sexy secretaries. Their only option was to dress like those men, right? And so the first wave of women that were in the boardroom were dressed like that. And so I think we're still reeling from that. We're still trying to figure out, are we the sexy secretary who doesn't end up in the C-suite because she's not listened to? Or are we a toned down, no sexuality person who maybe gets to be in the boardroom?
Maybe, but like we were saying, we talked about that earlier. Hillary wore that ugly pantsuit all those, a year at least, and she didn't get elected. So even though you hide your body and you hide your sexuality, and you try to be like a grandma energy and all that bullshit, they still don't let you in all the way. And that's interesting. I feel that why aren't men who are secretaries dressing in skirts? I mean, why, if a woman is a boss and she's in like the pants, right?
Yeah.
So why don't we get the men to dress as sexy boys if they are in a position? They should be pleasing to the eye, but it doesn't go both ways.
No.
Yeah. And that would be like, harassment, right? Or worse, to even suggest it. But to me, it's legit. Like, I would love to see men dress in the same, similar outfits as women. It would give me huge, both aesthetic pleasure and sexual pleasure, both. And I think it would be very liberating for them.
I see.
Like, they don't have to be cross-dressers, right? They don't have to be like in a category. They don't have to go that far where they need like hormones or whatever. They can just like for the night, wear something sexy like lace and a skirt and whatever, fishnets and heels.
Well, their idea of sexy could be latex instead, but it's a different kind of material.
Exactly.
And it's not a suit. That's for
Right.
sure.
It signals sexual availability. Like it's a fabric like that.
And objectification of the body.
Right.
Yeah, their
Right.
body.
Something tight.
Yeah.
Right.
Something German.
Yeah. Something German.
Thinking Berlin. In particular, Kit Kat Club. I've just had a flashback. It was dirty.
Yeah, the Germans do it well. Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, so we just, we're throwing that out there because we have to open up our minds and revisit all of these cliches, you know, all the time, I feel. Otherwise, we just assume the world has to be one way, and that's like the man's way.
Right.
Can I ask, do you know who invented the skirt?
No, I don't.
It's been on my mind as a question. I need to find out. It's obviously a guy, right? Because why would we need such easy access? Like, I wouldn't think a woman would have invented a skirt.
Wait. Isn't the skirt like the inheritor of the loincloth? Right. It's got to be.
So a female
So
kilt.
both wore them. Both men and women wore them.
Okay, so our
way
Scottish
back.
friends-
Right.
Yeah.
Scottish friends held on to it. But
They still wear that. My brother still wears his kilts.
ancient days, they all had skirts. It was easy for everyone.
Right. Let's get back to that.
Yes. How is it should be. I agree. Oh my God, let's get back to that. Yeah. Let them feel them. I mean, that's the thing that, we forget to say as feminists.
Yeah.
That the patriarchy is oppressing the men too,
Oh, yeah.
They can't experience any of that.
No.
Like, pleasure in being attractive, walking down the street in like a mini skirt that flaps in the wind, and someone wants to like stare at your butt cheeks or hopes to catch a glimpse. Like, why shouldn't they should feel that that's their perk for giving up some of that, huge amount of power that is oppressive, right? They should be able to like emote and, cry in the office.
I
Get
think
in
modern
touch
man
with all of
does.
that.
Like, I see men these days doing that. My brother, my husband, they are like that.
Good. Good. Yeah. Not in public though, right? In private.
no.
Yeah.
But also when men are in public holding if they're a political man and they're holding their baby on stage at a political rally, they're seen as like so heartfelt and like a great candidate, but
Right.
a woman who was up there with her baby as soon as
Exactly.
she already has a job, she can't
Yeah,
be a politician.
exactly.
So like
Yeah, exactly.
the system has to be smashed. It can't just be individuals who are doing
No, I
these
feel
things.
the system has to be smashed because the system is, pervasive.
Yeah.
And that's and again, we were talking about the fact that I feel that it's so huge that we women have to be conscious of it, and ideally, our men, the men who are on our side, should be conscious of it all the time, because if we're not aware of it, we can't get out of it. And this system began with written history, so we do not even have access to pre-patriarchy. It was all destroyed. So what happened, for example, to Sappho's work, who was born on Lesbos
Right.
and wrote good poetry, and 90% of the work is lost, and all her works were banned. That's what happened to like all of the, the work, the laws, the belief systems, the religions, the structures that were created by matriarchal societies before. It's gone to us. We can imagine it, but we don't really know. So even the language that we speak now is set up to, to empower men and to empower the system that exists, that pre-exists. And it's not a system that necessarily, again, helps the individual man, but it helps their structures, So I feel that living your life consciously, as a woman who is like held down by patriarchy and wants to be free as much as possible, that's the first step. And then knowing that, you will be able to find little methods on a daily basis to get access out, to something new, to turn things around, so you find yourself in a typical patriarchal moment, you have to turn it around. But if you're not aware of it, that's why it's the first step. If you're not
Right.
aware of it, you can't even try to, bring new voice to it or
Right.
change the power dynamic. Or, like one member mentioned, why aren't there banks that are run by women that we can, put our money there,
Bank of the womb.
Right.
I'm going to open it. Yes. I've been
Open
banned
it.
by all the other banks. This is my perfect fuck you. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you should open a bank that we can all, like put our money in and then borrow money
Yeah.
from.
Give you a good rate.
And, buy female, support, sister women, give women a break, if you find them catty or judgy or competitive, then just, remember that we're all in this together, and it's always easier to to get at fellow sisters than the men.
Right.
And then and another thing that I feel seems to, both having the language, the words, and getting your mind in a conscious place, like a meditative space that gives you awareness of the patriarchy. And also, I mentioned a quote that I think is powerful, that has been written about slavery, which is, we cannot use the master's tools to undo, to find our freedom. We cannot use the master's tools to destroy the master.
Right.
So we have to find our own language, our own ways, just like leaning in and, and making some extra dollars from the system, as Genevieve could have done if she had kept her job, right?
Could have been a millionaire by now.
Yep.
And she thinks of that every night.
Actually, I do not. No. It makes
Of course you don't.
feel ill to think of working in an office environment ever again, surrounded by that many suits. So
Yeah.
I am
That's
not
beautiful.
looking back.
Yeah. So you could have, but you didn't, because that doesn't do anything. It just kind of robs us of our soul, and it perpetuates,
It made me
this
ill.
prison.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what would I prefer? My health and happiness? Or
Exactly.
money in the bank? And
Yeah.
clearly health and happiness has to win.
Yeah. That's how I was. You know, there came a moment when I was successful, you know, working within the system successfully. There came a moment where I was like, either I have to be on meds the rest of my life, or just like move to Miami Beach.
From Lesbos?
I mean, no, not from Lesbos. That was in New York. No, Lesbos is perfect. We're all gonna go end up there.
Yes.
We're gonna colonize it.
Oh no.
Skirt Club colony.
It's already your colony.
Yes.
We're just going to turn up. Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's sweet. That's such a nice, it's a very different space. So, Femily, tell us a little bit about, well, I'd like you to, you know, if you want, give our listeners an overview of what your findings are with, like, you know, the current situation for women, both in and, you know, outside the work environment, and then what you try to achieve, you know, when you go there.
Yeah.
And you, you know, tell your audiences are mixed, right? So you're mostly addressing the men.
It's mixed. I either help the leadership of tech companies, which mostly is men. Mm-hmm. So I work with them, and it's a very different conversation I have with an all-male audience than women in tech. So with both audiences, I tell them the facts about what's going on for women in business, and it comes from the McKinsey report, which comes out every October. And it's the biggest report on women in the workplace, and it always says, it basically says, if we keep going at the same rate, we won't have equality for 200 years. And so that's depressing, but also it means we are making progress, and it's just a little too slowly. So I help companies. A lot of times it's with recruiting. There are a lot of male-centered biases when people see women come in to interview for jobs, especially tech jobs, especially for jobs that are male majority, that we assume is, if you're going to draw a picture of someone who's an engineer, most people draw a dude. And so women just have a harder time getting in the door in those regards. So I help companies with that. I also help the women who work in tech understand that if they're not getting promoted, even though they're great, it's not their fault. They don't need to necessarily leave tech. They need to fix the way that their company is doing promotions. For example, if one of my favorite things to do is show all the managers a breakdown of how they're doing in terms of promoting men and women that report to them. And you can tell that usually for many managers, it's they're over promoting men and under promoting women, which is bad for business because you're overlooking talent, right? And so most of them, they're good people. And so when they look at the numbers, they're horrified. So these aren't retrograde folks from the Mad Men era. These are like modern, progressive San Francisco, California people who know the way forward and that the future is equal. They just don't know how to get there yet. So with the numbers, that provides a lot of motivation for people to start looking at the women more clearly and to even that out pretty quickly. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, it's fascinating work. I basically bring in the data because I'm talking to men in tech, basically, and they want to see data. And then when they do, they often pivot. And so we're trying to change it. So
you're helping with recruitment quotas, mm-hmm. and then you're also helping the genders understand each other better in the workplace, right?
Yep.
Because you gave us some tricks, some ways for women to rephrase things, or
yes. So that's actually a good point. That's some of my most favorite work, is working with the women in tech. So they often have more education and more experience than the men in similar positions, but what they don't have is the kind of chutzpah or confidence that the men have.
Yes.
And so this is about taking situations where they don't have confidence in making things better. So, for example, when men are mansplaining them or interrupting them in meetings, how to gracefully respond so that they're not considered the office bitch, but they're considered just a smart person who got interrupted and got the mic back.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So often, the kinds of men who are on these teams that I'm talking with, like, they've heard of man-interruptions, they've heard of mansplaining. They don't want to be that person. They also have been trained every day of their life by the patriarchy to think that they should have more power and more airtime. So it's just helping them get conscious of the moments and what they're doing and how to get them back.
Exactly. Yeah. And I think that's exactly what it is, that we have to get to be conscious, and then we have to, make the men around us conscious.
Right.
And it includes like our husbands, our boyfriends, our sons, and all the men we work with, kind of making them see how they sound, what they're doing, how unfair it is.
Right.
It starts from like the littlest stuff where we were saying, I have a couple of men I work with who will always say that I'm interrupting them when they're interrupting me. No, but it's uncanny. It's just so shocking. But they do it. I don't know if they do it with everyone or just women, but they get upset. And the other thing that someone also mentioned in our audience that I found very common is that they say that their feelings are hurt, which we could never say, and we're accused of unfairly.
They've learned this in a management style book.
They have? That's where they get this?
It's the ultimate response to get out of a tricky situation.
Oh.
Well, the way I feel is this, and then we can argue with your feelings. It's a tactic.
Oh, so they think they're speaking our language and using it to shut us up.
They think that you can't argue with someone's feelings because they're only their own. So
I
it's
see.
A classic.
I see. Yeah. Again, but it's used completely out of context.
Completely.
Right.
I mean, being empathetic, the empathetic gender, like you can feel when someone is suffering. You can physically pick up on like pain. And there is nothing there going on. There is no pain except the words of it.
Yeah. No.
Yeah. So telling, kind of like putting them on the spot with, in a calm, friendly voice.
Right.
So like calm, I feel, and firm. So nothing about us registers as like emotional or bitchy or aggressive.
Yeah.
Like super non-threatening, but firm. And again, that's something that, as we were saying, we have to train ourselves to do. And I have found that doing daily meditation of any kind helps, because it helps you get distance from your emotions. And your thoughts, so that you can speak in a certain way that's not like automatic. You don't
react.
Yeah, you don't react. Exactly. It's not reactive.
Yeah, I think it's healthy for women generally to meditate and have clearer thoughts. I find it frustrating. Some days I can't work because there's too much going on in my head and I'm just paralyzed. Meditation helps me get out of that. So I think generally overall it's healthy for us. I think women can achieve more if they're able to think clearer.
Yeah. And also because we were programmed, by our moms and our teachers who didn't know any better, who told us how to be, to be polite and be friendly, and, all these numerous times that we were told no as kids, no, don't do that, from like, don't cross your legs, don't put your elbows on the table. I mean, what?
Yeah.
Why? When I think of it, there was so much. There were like millions
so
rules like that, right?
Yeah. No, for sure. I remember I used to run around like without my shirt on in the summer when I was like 5. And I remember my mom saying to me, "You can't run around without your shirt on anymore." And it was like, you're the one bringing a weird sexuality to this. Like, I certainly don't have one.
Yeah, exactly. So all of that stuff we have to unlearn and get rid of and empty our head off of it. And meditation is a great time to do that, to empty your mind and then, kind of like realize that it's up to you to choose what thoughts enter it, and not like let it all in. That doesn't serve you.
Wait, I just had a thought about how this translates to the bedroom, because we carry so many thoughts in our head when we're, in the boardroom and in the bedroom, right? And so when we're with a man, we're wondering, like, is he good? Do I look fat? Like, there's just like all these lists of things, right?
Oh my God.
It's so much in our head.
Do I look is like an endless list.
And do I sound right? Am I too loud?
Oh, yeah, do I sound right?
And then, so it makes me think, so Skirt Club, I wonder, so we don't have to think about, is he this, is he that? And there's no man there to take up all the airtime and the headspace. Like, that's part of the freedom of women sleeping with women. It's like, we're not wondering about how a dude's doing.
Exactly.
Yeah, or how the script is coming along.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Because we haven't been trained. Like, we've been trained how to be with a guy, but no one taught us like how to be with a girl. So that's great.
That's a bloody good point.
Yeah.
There's no script to follow.
Yeah.
No.
So we're writing it ourselves.
Each time a different way.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
My God, there's a whole new book out of this.
Yeah. I know. It's like, but that's what it is. Like, that's also, with this whole speak sex for me, it's like, that's exactly what it was. I thought there are tiny little, slips. Like, there is the fence, but there is like tiny little holes where we can slip into the system. And that's where they are. It's stuff that's not been prescribed to death, that we haven't been taught, a million rules about. That's where we get to make it up. So whether it is speaking, like with a guy or with a girl, but in the bedroom when none of us speak, because we don't know what to say, because we're not supposed to speak, finding those words, that's the speak sex.
Whoa.
And it's a way in to like finding your own words for everything else you're going to do in life. And, sleeping with women is another way of, being able to like be sexual without that consciousness, without bringing the patriarchal consciousness into, your sexual space.
Yeah.
Which is amazing.
But I also find it's a bit of a curse because I'll just bring it the other side. Because with flirting, for example, I could tell you 45 pages of writing of how to flirt with a dude, right?
Yeah.
I've been queer for 40 years, like interested in women, sleeping with women, flirting with women. I still don't really 100% know how to do it. Like, I'm still very clueless as to how to do it. The script is reassuring in some ways.
True.
I much prefer the off script in theory, but in my physical body and practice of it, it's more anxiety provoking to not have a script.
No, my script that I'm talking about is specifically sexual. So it is specifically about sexual activity. It's not at all about flirting.
Oh.
I feel like flirting has already been done usurped by Disney movies. Everything. It's like we fall into categories so easily. So it's much more, the idea of like, do you want to be on top? Can I be on top? Do you want me to tweet you out? For how long would you like? Show me where is your clit? Like specifics. So say the things, do you like my finger, 2 fingers? Have you done this? Do you want to try that? How many times? Just like speak about what you're about to do and what you want to do and what you have just fantasized about. Without thinking, no thinking, just kind of speak. That's the language of sex that we're not allowed, because the only version of it is in porn, but even in porn, like they very quickly shut up and it's all about the camera, right? So, but the flirt, I think that very rarely the flirt is authentic. I think there's like so much that we have, seen in movies or read in books or, heard pick-up lines. And so it's very hard to be truly, I can say that I am, truly authentic. I find it difficult to speak truth because I'm not sure what is authentic to like this person that have I said it before? Have I, what I mean?
Yeah.
How much of it, there is always a feeling that there is a manipulation going on my end. Like I'm always a little self-conscious that I might be like selling myself. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Trying to sound more interesting or more experienced or I don't know. Of course I'm overanalyzing. You see, I'm like overanalyzing it because it's already in that area that's like so analyzed and thought about. And whereas like when it's in the sexual space, that doesn't exist. All of that goes. There's like no point. I have no frame of reference at all, making it up. It's great.
But I think women flirting with women, I think it's common that is an open terrain where there isn't a script. There's a script of like man chases woman or woman chases man. But even at Skirt Club, when I try to see, am I seeing flirting? Like it's a different landscape when I see women together at a party. What do you see?
I see everything. What have I not seen?
You've seen it all.
It's because I see it every day. It's now very normal to me.
Yeah.
So now I'm trying to think what stands out because I see it so much.
Mm-hmm.
But generally, I see women walk into a party with a strategy in New York, especially. I watch them shark around the room, choose who they like and don't like, and then get that person a drink and like full on have a conversation. So, after the speaker finishes at 10:30 p.m., that's the first person they kiss, and generally that's the first person they sleep with, and that tends to be the person they spend the rest of the night with.
Oh, wow.
There's a strategy.
Yeah.
And do you feel like that same person employs that level of female empowerment when they're approaching a man? Is that just that person, or are they feeling more free because they're at Skirt Club to try out that side of themselves?
Good question. I think women in New York, in particular, where this strategy takes place, it doesn't happen in London. They are. Drinks first. No, the New Yorkers, they tend to be of the same ilk. Yeah, they've got a job as a lawyer or a banker, or a realtor. They have established. They have money in their pocket. They've already exerted themselves at work. They're not afraid.
Yeah, but they come out more from like a male cliche. I mean, I feel because I've done it. Yeah, I've done it, and I've done it. But I've done it to me when I've done it. I felt it was a persona. It was like I was gonna do. It didn't feel like it's who I truly am. Like in my soul. But it would be. It was more like that's the part I'm gonna play, and then I walk in. But then in those experiences, it's so visual, and it's almost like a conquering element. It's like the fun of the joy of the conquest. Like finding what you think is the best looking person there, who you think you'd have the least chances with, and then conquering them, and then that's like the high. But I don't feel that's for me. Like if I'm going to be honest, I would say that when I can be in a place that's pretty tantric or whatever you want to call it, spiritually aware, and I feel that authentic desire coming from someone that's not like with all that other stuff, the extra stuff, and then I respond to it from the same place, then that would be the most the most true connection. Yeah. But it's hard, like in a setting where there are lots of people and there are a lot of distractions, and you feel like you're watched. It's hard to get there. There is a lot of like. It's hard to get to that like third eye or whatever you want to call it, focus when you're surrounded. You're constantly bombarded by like social chaos and other people's energies, and but when you can get there, that's it.
Yeah, and I think you get there after a few times of practice. You don't get there the first time.
No, for sure.
Yeah. No, it's not easy. Often, like I witness a lot of nervous and scared women who are walking, they're so out of their comfort zone. Like, not just the fact that they're at a party where they know nobody, but they're also presenting themselves in a new way as somebody who's desires sex, who desires sex with a woman. And it's so, like, intimidating. They are often shaking, and yes, they'll hit the champagne pretty hard at the beginning of the night to quell those nerves. But as soon as you begin to see everyone else is in the same boat, that will subside. I don't think it's till your 6th event that you're like strolling in there.
Oh, really?
I'll take you. Yeah, I think it takes it depends on your personality, of course, but it would take me a good 6 events to get there.
Interesting. 6 is a number, like when people ask me, girlfriends of mine or listeners, they ask me about how soon do you know when the sex with someone is good, and can you tell the first time? And I always say 6 because it sounds come up with it. I mean, it's not like scientific. It's just like personal. From what I've experienced and what people have talked to experienced, it's kind of like a number where I feel most of us agree. But yeah, interesting. What's with the 6?
It just sounds like sex.
Yeah. 6 6 is the sex number.
It's a sexy number, 6.
You give out keys when people first come to skirt club. You should give it out when someone's on their
I know.
6th party. Watch out,
Oh,
this person
yeah.
has prowess.
Trophy, yeah. Or a small crown or tiara.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can get something, a token, like in AA, but different.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it's a great idea. I do
Yeah.
have people on their 6th party. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
Also, it's good information for people to know, because if you're here on your 1st, you might want to buddy up with someone on their 6th so that you're like not 2 newbies, but like one
Right,
slightly more experienced person.
Yeah. Yeah.
I see them doing that on the website, though.
Oh, good.
They'll meet for drinks beforehand. They'll come in a pack
Okay.
of 4. But I also hear them going out for dinner together, like meeting in the movies, double dating, going around to each other's houses. You know, it's not just the events anymore.
Right. Yeah. That's beautiful.
Yeah, I mean, I hired an event manager in London recently, and she said she wanted to work for us because she met both her girlfriend and her flatmate at the Skirt Club. And she wanted to give back.
Yeah.
I was like,
Yeah.
oh, okay.
Yeah, exactly. That's the bonding. Yeah. And that's what's, I feel like I wish it could be like that with men too. And if we were, a little more evolved, it could be, where you could like have men, like you can have women with whom you have sexual experiences, but you can also be friends and you can be like, roommates, housemates, work together and without all the drama that we go through, the drama of like, which I think stems from those expectations that we're saddled with and raised with of like, whatever it is, monogamy is number one.
Yeah.
You gotta like own someone, someone's psyche, body, like whatever.
Yeah.
And, but also like how a guy should treat you and all that stuff, which again, that's like you get free from that when you're with women. That's beautiful. But it would be nice to be free of it in general, to find a way to address it from the beginning, with men as well. And, open up space where you can just like be 2 people. Not like man and woman, Adam and Eve, and the garden and the apple and the serpent and whatever.
And the loincloth.
I know, right?
Oh my gosh.
And the whole species depends on this moment. Not that. Yeah. So anyway, our audience gave us some questions, and I'm gonna touch up on them. And you had some questions, right, from Skirt Club members
they
who
so
were
good.
Yeah,
On
you
the
had some
Instagram.
nice on the Instagram. Yeah. So anyway, today's questions that we got are. How would you respond to the following scenario? A fellow business owner offers to send clients your way because he says they can't afford me. And he has no idea what you charge. Family?
I mean, first of all, my plan is always to keep things harmonious because you don't need to fight, but you do need to like stand in your own. So I would say something coy like, how do you know I don't charge double what you charge? Because it definitely gets the point across, but you can still work with this person in the future. They can still send you clients. It keeps it amicable. I don't think you need to drop a bomb and blow it all up when there's a minor infraction. Also, this person is never going to listen and get enlightened and then become on our team if he feels ashamed.
I mean, yeah, if you could get him to feel ashamed, it doesn't sound like...
Yeah.
I think the best reason not to attack him is that it's just not. It's gonna get through. Get through him.
Yeah.
I mean, why would he say that? He could just say you want his clients because they charge more.
Ridiculous.
It's like an insult.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's good. And someone else said something. Oh yeah, someone in the audience said that it would be like an opportunity to like steal his clients.
Yeah. If she wants to get paid less, though, I mean, what if the woman does charge what he charges and he's like, so then this clearly says the person can't afford me. So she has to cut her rates to win the client. So if your goal is to win clients through cutting your rates, that's fine. But it's not my recommendation.
No. Okay. So then what approach tactics have the most open-minded companies adopted to successfully improve gender and sexuality inclusion?
I mean, there's a couple approaches. There's first of all, bless you. There's first of all, just getting more women in the room in all the places where there aren't. So improving your recruiting efforts in a number of ways, like making sure you have 2 women in the pool. Harvard did a study that said that until you have 2 women in the interviewing pool, applying for the job, people who are interviewing them can't see them as anything but women. And in today's era, women have a stereotype, especially women applying to be in tech. Tech is supposed to be a man's field. So you can't see a woman candidate with clear eyes until there are 2 in the pool. So making sure there are 2 in the pool. There are just little tricks like this that are peppered throughout the entire employee pipeline, all the way up to the C-suite, that the most open-minded companies are definitely doing.
So another question was, I have consciously turned more and more into the man I wanted to marry. And even though I move swiftly between the world of men, with some I play the charming girl, with others I am one of the guys, I am feeling more and more disconnected from my feminine essence. How can I connect these 2 personas to work for me and make me whole again? That's a very good question, I feel. And do you wanna talk to it, a family, for a second?
I mean, it's definitely a constant struggle that all of the executives that I work with are trying to figure out, right?
The women executives.
Yeah, the women. Too bad. Male executives should bring a lot more femininity into the boardroom.
Exactly.
Yeah, some emotional empathy would be nice for a start.
Exactly.
But I mean, it's tricky to master the world of like what's an outfit and a look and a way and a tone and a vibe that feels like you without cutting off your sexuality. I mean, I honestly don't have the answer. It's like if there's not a script for all women of this, show this much knee, be this much curvy, voluptuous, slinky around the room. There's whatever feels like your form of feminine empowerment, but it's not a very helpful answer, really. I think we're still trying to figure it out.
Yeah,
you have a lot.
Well, it would be interesting. It would be interesting, actually, what you said. I would like to see workshops of men led by men and women together who teach men how to be more feminine and get in touch with their feminine, the good things about their feminine side at work, in the workplace.
Right.
And not just because, how to be like politically correct or, be respectful of women, but to actually bring out their full self. And it would make them better businessmen. They would understand their customer base better, right? They would understand their workforce better. They might not be so, completely like blindly responsive to the shareholders, but that's okay, and this may be a good moment, in the culture, because of like the reaction to Trump and that extreme white masculine poisoning toxic disease that we're governed by. Well, what I said in my answer was, first of all, that I would, in my time out of work, I get in touch with my feminine self in ways that are not patriarchal or cliche. So I would start a Wicca practice or some other spiritual practice that's similar, that comes from matriarchy, that has not been prescribed and is not controlled by patriarchy. Go out in nature on the full moon, light a fire, find the source, a spiritual source, and name her goddess, so that your spiritual practice is to the goddess, to the mother goddess, or the goddess of love, or the goddess of home, the goddess of work. Find rituals, light candles. Again, do feminine-based yoga, and there are menstrual rituals and workshops. I also suggested, masturbation, but not masturbation just to get off, but masturbation to kind of like explore your feminine body in new ways that you haven't before, and do it from a place of love. So you actually feel, it makes you feel, not just, feel, clitorally, but feel throughout, all over your body. And that's a form of like integration. Yeah. So even though we think it's like, it's just about, getting off, like if you have an itch, you're going to scratch it. No. Do it even if you don't have the itch, right? And there are, there are many other actions, choices like that are, women-centered, that like guys would not make. So if you think of one, it's good for you. But how to bring that person as an integrated person in the workspace when you have already presented yourself out there as the man of your dreams? I know that's going to be a hard one. And it's not about clothes, even though I think that clothes are a costume. So trying on different costumes helps, right?
Yeah.
Being experimental with your wardrobe, I think is very useful, and I highly recommend it. Not think of clothes so much as an expression of who you are. So you say like, okay, my style now is this, because this is how I want to look in the world, and that's my taste in clothes. But just like try out all kinds of looks, and as if it were kind of not really a masquerade, because you become the costume you wear. So try them out, because you may find in the process that there is something that you're putting on that suddenly makes you feel like the woman, the hidden silent woman inside you is coming out a little more, in the workspace if you look like that. But you're not going to know it until you try things out, and it can be fun, it can be playful. But I think the fact that she wants to do it matters, because then, your time off, you can focus on looking for things that fulfill that question, that answer that question. And, just going on that quest might be enough.
Yeah, I love what you're saying about the costume. I find that when I am dating a man, I like to dress more queer and edgy, and like I bring the gayer outfits, because then I feel balanced. I'm like, here's a man holding my hand, but I look like gay.
Right, yeah.
And then when I'm dating women or like with women, then I like to do it the opposite.
I do that too.
Wow.
Yeah. It's for balance.
Yes. Yeah.
I haven't thought of it, because for men I've always thought like, well, I want him to know that I'm not like just so I'm trying to give all these signals, but I haven't thought about with a woman, then you feel more comfortable like being completely girly.
It's fascinating.
It's true. Genevieve. So what are the best ways to bring the lessons of the bedroom back into the boardroom?
So we had this saying at Skirt Club: confidence in the bedroom gives you confidence in the boardroom. And this was true of my life. So I felt as a living example that I could replicate that for all women in our membership. But I did feel that in bed, if I was confident and assured of myself and asked for what I wanted, it gave me a sense of wholeness. And that next morning, walking into work, I certainly was, more determined, more instructional, and telling people what to do, all around me, versus being the meek and mild marketing girl in the office, which I was also at sometimes. So it certainly brought something out of me, and it woke up a side of me that was probably my more masculine energy. But I enjoyed it, and I loved feeling confident, and I certainly felt happier with my life. So I just felt that women, it could go the other way around, confidence in the boardroom to the bedroom. It could go that way around too, and I think maybe for men that is truer. But I just wanted women to have something they could own and feel good about, and then take that feeling right through to the rest of all the other parts of their lives.
Yeah, I agree with you. I totally think that it whether we do it consciously or not, it seems true that if you feel that you're in a place of power in your private life, in the bedroom, and even out of the bedroom, in your personal life, in your relationship life, that will translate at work. Because there is no way, that if you feel that confidence in the rest of your life, that you will take the bullshit, and just swallow everything that comes your way, all the insults, or the little insults, and all those tiny little jabs constantly, just to keep the job. You after a while you can't, because you're someone else. You're used to being this other person now. So that could be one very simple way, for women to get more strength in the and a better voice in the workplace, is to just get it first in their private life, in the domestic space, in the sexual space. And I feel that was the central failing of the feminist revolutions that we've already had. That neither the first nor the second wave of feminism actually addressed, changing our relationships. It was always about like the public sphere, the workspace, the legal system, but they didn't give us the tools to change the everyday, the one-on-one. And actually that's where the big change starts.
Yeah, at home.
Yeah, at home.
And inside of you.
Inside of you.
Not what you're projecting in the office, but actually how you feel about yourself.
Right. Yeah. And in your family too. And that includes like your parents, your siblings, because all of that, revisiting all of that, your partners, your children, revisiting all of those relationships where you speak up when something is said that's not appropriate, that is not respectful, or when something, is done or said that seems like a crude cliche. Being able to see it and not just kind of like, be blind to it because it's been done for generations, seeing it and addressing it, I think also is empowering.
Tackling it head on.
Yeah. Yeah.
When I think about myself when I was younger, I was very angry. And I was just reflecting on that. The way I dealt with things usually was just to blow up because I couldn't understand why I was being trapped and told what to do and know this, know that. I was locked in my bedroom a lot as a child. And it obviously has created the monster you see today. But my way of rebelling was to scream and shout. I didn't know any other way. And listening to you today actually helped me a lot because you talked about handling things as an adult and calm and collectedly, and you will earn and keep their respect by doing so. It took me a long time to learn that. But unfortunately, it's this vicious cycle where you're not respected by men because you only know how to react in an angry manner because no one's listening to you and because you are angry and it just doesn't go away. It just keeps going round and round.
And as children, I mean, that's what we see. Our parents basically are nice to us until they explode. There is nothing else. Right? And, because we're with them so long, it's the explosive moments that register the most, because that's like the time of trauma. That's when like that little brain that's still been formed, realizes, okay, I gotta refigure things, because our brain is constantly changing. That's why we're saying we can change things, because we're rearranging scenarios to things that don't hurt us. Our brain is there to protect us from pain. That's its main job, But when we're children and they are screaming at us in a very, shocking way, then that's when we learn our different like methods, to defend ourselves. And one of them, if you're a forceful personality like you are, Genevieve, is to give it right back at them. Totally. If that's the way, then okay, that's what I gotta do.
That's so interesting. I grew up in a house where there was just a lot of violence, like yelling and screaming at each other. And I wasn't in the yelling and screaming. It was like my parents and one of my siblings. And the way I learned to do it is not yell back at them. It's to preemptively avoid it. And so I realized a couple weekends ago on this self-development retreat that my relationship with men on the street, men who are my lovers, men who I work with, was totally predicated on that or based on that, which was do anything I can to not make them yell and scream at me as the little 8-year-old that I was, right? And so that's probably where, this is like full circle to what you just said, where I learned to like keep the peace so much. It's like a tactic.
You're making a living out of it.
I know.
The ultimate chess player, isn't she? The mastermind.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
We're very different.
Yeah.
I'll take a gun to it before I like.
I'm not mad inside. I think women's anger is the only thing that's ever changed anything. I just use the gracefulness as a tool.
Yeah.
But it earns men's respect, and unfortunately, they won't listen unless they respect you.
Yeah.
Even if we don't respect them.
Right.
But that's our secret.
But I mean, honestly, both of those are legitimate. If like first responses, as we get older and smarter and stronger and more aware of things, we can fine tune them. So like the shouting becomes a quiet shout, and calm and collected yell. But I still think it's like both of those are preferable to like all the women out there who eat themselves or drink themselves to silence, which is what happens. Medicate themselves in all kinds of ways so they won't speak up, and that's the worst. And that's also the most common, which is to turn it against you.
They push it down,
right? To push all the anger within, so it eats out at you, and then it takes away your strength more and more and more, because by what happens when you self-medicate in any one of these ways, is that you lose your voice completely. So you give up your agency. So it's better to have your agency and be, a little rough around the edges, or be a bad bitch or a good bitch, or
more rough diamonds, aren't we?
Yeah. Yes, exactly. Or be graceful, but to a point.
Yeah, there's a line right across it.
Yeah, but all of those are better options. Yeah, so do not let it stew. If you're out there listening, just like speak out and speak up for yourself, and also speak sex.
Oh yeah.
Speak openly about sex. Nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
We all have it.
Yeah. You ask for it and you shall get it. Okay, well, I think that's a good place to close our conversation. It was really beautiful. Thank you for coming on the podcast. Yeah, I hope that we speak again. This was our third episode together, Genevieve.
I know. It's a few of the thousands of other conversations that we have.
I know. But you're my only guest who's had 3 appearances.
Oh my God, I'm a regular.
To us. Yeah. Yes.
I want my own chair, my own champagne.
You're going to have your own sub-channel soon.
That's going to be our Even Genevieve collection.
Yeah, the Even Genevieve. Don't you love that?
In bed with.
It. Yes, I love
we got the bed here.
Shall we get in the bed?
That's the future.
Yeah.
So stay tuned. And thank you, family. It was so nice to meet you and talk with you. So thank you for listening. Thank you for trusting me as your sex whisperer. And until next Friday, speak sex. Bye. If I could make love incessantly, I would be gone.